Shadow Ferrothorn, gonna go for the one shield, full bullet seed farm down, leaving at 100 energy. Quagsire cannot return. The opponent gonna be forced to reveal their third. The opponent send out Galarian Weezing, two choices, train a shield or get one shot. Welcome back to the channel. Can you believe it? We've got back-to-back days of me showcasing my own battles on my own channel. That's pretty unheard of nowadays, but today we're taking a look at the Spring Cup. Usually I avoid limited metas like the plague. I find these formats very difficult to run triple shadow teams in. However, today I was pleasantly surprised as this team did fantastically, gaining around 100 elo in just 4 sets. Leading the line for me today will be Shadow Ferrothorn, having that double weakness to fire. We need to cover that, and of course I'm going for an ABB strategy like I often do with double water in the back. We've got Tentacruel and Lapras. Ferrothorn also going to be weak to counter. There's not too many counter users, but poliwrath is around and is a possibility to see one. So both my back two Pokemon do alright into that. Of course Lapras, not fantastic, but psywave does in turn hit back for super effective. Lapras will be the team's designated save switch. I've got a horrible habit of talking in these intros for far too long, so without any further ado, let's get into the battles. And in game 1, we are off to a good start. Shadow Ferrothorn into Lapras. The opponent save switches into Amoonguss. I think you can go to either Pokemon here. Have a Tentacruel only going to take neutral from the potential Grass Knot, whereas Lapras would take super effective. I'm going to respect the Grass Knot. I think most are running Sludge, but sometimes better to be safe than sorry. I go for the Scold. Scold is resisted, but does do more than an Acid Spray. Acid Spray, essentially a DGen move that just double debuffs the opponent's defense. It looks like my opponent's actually intending to make a play at taking back switch, and that's fine for me, as it's going to cost them both Protect Shields again. Full send the Scold, guarantee the knockout or that final Protect Shield. The opponent obliges, putting up that final Protect Shield, and I can send out Ferrothorn and commit to a very nice resisted Bullet Seed farm down. The opponent fire off the Sludge. Sludge is single resisted. Ferrothorn leaves very close to the Flash Cannon. Out comes Mawile. Flash Cannon only hits for neutral, but a lot of neutral damage at that. We land the Flash Cannon, make the pivot into Lapras. The opponent bank the Power Up Punch and enter the mirror. Ice Beam is recommended, I'll be honest. I've got no intention of investing in Elite TM. And Skull Bash, very nice into opposing Lapras. The opponent could be on Skull Bash, let's see. But even if they are, I'm buffed up and I don't care. The opponent is indeed on Skull Bash, but that Skull Bash is not going to save my opponent. I overfarm, fire off the Sparkling Aura. Mawile, going to get resisted, Psywave farm down, and we're going to take that game. Heading into the next battle, back-to-back Lapras leads. Jamie Finn is the algorithm confirmed. Keep them Lapras leads coming. The opponent save switch into Klefki. Honestly, what is this Pokemon design? Who thought an earring was a good design for a Pokemon? I'm aware it's supposed to be a key, but it definitely looks more like an earring. I feel like the Pokemon designers really are scraping the barrel at this point. We've got earrings, we've got ice creams, we've got trash bags, you name it. Everything apparently could be a Pokemon. I correctly shield at the Flash Cannon, get the full Psywave farm down. The opponent sends out their own Lapras, and once again, we're full sending the Bash. Most people won't shield this move, and Skull Bash lands for a lot of neutral damage. I'm fairly confident I know what's in the back. It's going to be an Amoonguss, and right on cue, the opponent makes a very nice catch, or so they would believe, catching onto Amoonguss, but we're buffed up. These Psywaves hitting for super effective. I'm going to rebank the Sparkling Aura, and Tentacruel hits the field of play. You might ask yourself, am I psychic? Or perhaps am I using the Discord bot? Let's not even go into that subject. The answer to both of them questions is no. Homeslice Henry posted this team yesterday. My research for the Spring Cup was essentially see what he ran and make sure my team doesn't get clapped by his one. My opponent reluctant to shield an Acid Spray, but I think they were kind of obliged to. Not that I think they had a chance of winning this game, but using them shields is always a good start. Trust me, I lose with 2 shields, time and time again. It looks like the opponent has chose that fate for themselves. They're going to reach the Sparkling Aura, which doesn't get the job done. Quick switch back into Lapras, the Psywave farm down, and we take that game. Heading into the next battle, we see Shadow Gator in the lead position. I'm going to attempt to catch an Ice Beam onto Lapras, and my catch attempt was horrendous. And we're now going to get Hydro Cannon, or even maybe Crunch to the face. The opponent go for the Hydro Cannon, which is resisted, but Shadow and Shadow Crime does a solid chunk. The Shadow Alligator going to offer Lapras another drink. I know I survived, so I'm reluctant to shield a resisted move. The opponent then send out Gliscopod. I try to sneak the Bash through 2 Protect Shields, and the opponent actually correctly shield up the Bash. This is kind of awkward for me. Tentacruel is going to fully wall these charge moves. Have a Gliscopod, a top meta threat now. Believe it or not, in all 3 leagues. Master League, kind of debatable, but it was good in MLP. And the reason it's so good is a combination of Shadow Claw and 2 40 energy charge moves that are pretty decent, make it a menace even when charge moves are resisted. I was really hoping that Poison Jab knocked out. Unfortunately it didn't, and my Tentacruel going to lose almost all its HP. Back out comes Gator. We're going to fire off the Acid Spray. Acid Spray goes unshielded. I tried to snipe with Ferrothorn, and out comes G-Weezy. You know the drill. We're full sending. Does the opponent respect the damage? Why don't I bait? We've got 2 rules on this channel. Die with honour, looking to call the bait, and full sending the nuke. Thankfully, the opponent only fire off the sludge. They do make 1 further sludge. For Alligator, is only going to be 3 Shadow Claws off the Hydro Cannon. A resisted Hydro Cannon would do more than the sludge, so I'm willing to tank this move, but it did far too much, and unfortunately, I'm just going to get Shadow Claw farmed down. GG's to that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see the Battle of Grass types, where we can only hit one another for resisted damage. The opponent sends out poliwrath. So I did say in the intro that counter users are pretty few and far between. When we used to have Spring Cup, when poliwrath was at its full force, it used to be so common, but unfortunately counter has been nerfed, making it very slow to charge moves. Tentacruel was always very advantageous into this matchup, but nowadays it's even better as poliwrath is just so bloody slow. The opponent going to reach the departing Icy Wind, Tentacruel going to absorb the damage before looking for that full poison jab farm down. The opponent gets me pretty low, but that's not bad for me, to be honest. It leaves minimal farm for this Electrode, however they've done enough damage where we're not going to reach the second Acid Spray. Of course, Lapras doesn't fancy the smoke, so we're just going to re-enter this battle of resisted damage. But unless the opponent pivot out, with a double debuff defense, a Power Whip should remove them from the field of play. The opponent actually now have a quad debuff defense. This Power Whip's certainly going to get the job done. The opponent sends out yet another Lapras. We're just going to stay in, fire off the Power Whip. Power Whip should force the opponent's first Protect Shield, then I'm going to enter the Mirror. Despite pvpoke recommending Ice Beam, quite a lot of Lapras are running Skull Bash. I do respect it as the opponent farmed to it. They do have Skull Bash, so it's a good idea to shield the first move before buffing up my own defense, meaning subsequential ones after that will do less. Despite still having a shield, we're going to look to call the Sparkling Aura bait here again. The opponent farms to the Skull Bash, but even if they full send, as they're not a shadow, we're going to absorb the damage, reach the next Skull Bash, and save 1 shield for next season, because this game is still pretty trashy, and all them save shields often come in clutch. GG's to that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see Jellicent in the lead. The opponent say switch into Klefki, and once again, we're going to send out Lapras. If the opponent farms to the Flash Canon, I will be respecting it. However, this opponent really surprised me. They fire off a Playrough. I'm not really sure what you're going to Playrough in this meta. I think Flash Canon is the correct move to throw. But we all know how bad this TM system is. So potentially a lack of TMs on their part. The opponent only reach a foul play. I'm happy to absorb this damage. And then I'm going to stop tapping. Let the opponent get off 2 further Astonishes, minimising the farm for that return in Jellicent. Jellicent not too bad into Ferrothorn, especially with a huge energy lead. We fire off 1 Sparkling Aura. I thought about pivoting out, but I think it's probably Mawile in the back, so I'm going to cry if that's the case. So I don't want to give up switch for the opponent just to hard punish me. We send out Ferrothorn, the opponent going to fire off potentially the Shadow Ball. I don't really see why you'd bait. We also got 1 turn bring in here. This is why I tell you the game's crap. That shouldn't be how the game's supposed to work. I should have snuck a Bullet Seed, but it kind of is what it is. I'll do my best not to spoil this battle, but not sneaking that Bullet Seed might actually cost me. My suspicions are correct. There is the Mawile. Steel double resist poison, whereas Fairy does take super effective, meaning this poison type damage is single resisted, but Mawile very, very glassy. So I'm just going to spam out these acid sprays as soon as I get to them. My opponents played this really smart. They threw the hard hitting Playrough, meaning I'm obliged to shield this power up punch. While the power up punch wouldn't have been lethal, I was worried the opponent would attempt to snipe with Jellicent. Back out comes Jellicent. We fire off the Power Whip, fully undercharging, anticipating the opponent saving that shield for Mawile. They do exactly that, surviving on 1 HP and a Dream. Of course, if I got a Bullet Seed through, they would have been dead, but it is what it is. The opponent played really well, and I can't complain. GG's to that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see Ferrothorn into Qwilfish. This Qwilfish, unlike the Hisuian one, is going to take neutral from all of our grass type damage. But I'm running an ABB team, so I'm going to look to pivot out eventually into Lapras, attempting to catch an Ice Beam unsuccessfully, and Jellicent hits the field of play. While my charge moves are fully walled here, this matchup isn't too bad in the Great League. The combination of Psywaves being a 1-turn move really start to chunk, and Sparkling Aura or Aria. A lot of people tell me it's Aria, but I'm British. I like to call it Aria. Do add up over time. Lapras is so bulky that the opponent's actually going to be forced to dump energy here. So this season, Hex received an energy buff. So the counters to Shadow Ball now are 5-4-4. The opponent threw a Surf there, so I'm thinking, is this the Shadow Ball? I wasn't sure, so I do invest a Protect Shield, and apparently I need to learn my counts, so I end up shielding a Surf. Out comes Trevenant. Trevenant going to be greeted with the Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon forces the shield. I'm going to stay in, look to reach the next Flash Cannon that I do on CMP. If the opponent's Shadow Ball, it's going to be Night Night, Sleep Tight Ferrothorn. The opponent go for the Seed Bomb bait, a dreadful double resisted bait. We reach the Flash Cannon picks up that one hit KO. We then pivot into Tentacruel, looking to absorb, hopefully an Ice Beam. The opponent actually full sends a Sludge Wave, which was supposed to be resisted. Tentacruel reasonably bulky, although that did so much damage. Again, we're going to call the bait. The opponent go for the Aqua Tail bait. Tentacruel able to reach the Acid Spray. Acid Spray going to force a double debuff on the opponent's defense and the final Protect Shield. The opponent do look for that Poisoning Farm down, which they're able to get. Thankfully, we don't get one turn bring in. Sneak the Bullet Seed, and that Bullet Seed will be removing them from the field of play. And that is why you shouldn't bait. Heading into the next battle, we have found ourselves a problem, and its name is Shadow Cacturn. I attempt to catch a Dynamic Punch onto Tentacruel unsuccessfully, and we're immediately hard punished by Gastrodon. So far, it looks like RPS for the win. We fire off the Skull, which hits for neutral, but the opponent is going to get a full Mod Slap farm down. What are my win cons here? Probably none. We're just going to chuck out Ferrothorn, hope the opponent goes to the world's stupidest Body Slam bait. Do they? They do not. Earth Power rocks me deep into the red. The opponent able to Mod Slap farm down, and that is an absolute demolition. GG's to that opponent. I often see in comment sections people saying content creators only show their wins. I think it's quite funny when I get absolutely clapped, so you can all enjoy that one. In the next battle, we see the Battle of Grass types. We do double resist the Vine Whip damage, but Aerial Aces hit for neutral, and we are far outpaced. The opponent even correctly shot up the Flash Cannon, but I think in fairness, no one's going to Power Whip bait there, so the opponent invested a good shield. The opponent so spammy, they're able to outpace to the next one. We are going to invest a Protect Shield, and then go for good timing, one Bullet Seed and the Flash Cannon. If this Flash Cannon goes unshielded, I'm going to send out Tentacruel, not the Tentacruel to my save switch, and try and aggressively snipe. We're able to do that and get a 2 Poison Jab running start. The opponent sends out Lapras. These Psywaves are hitting for super effective, which do more than my Poison Jabs, but not for long, as we're going to force a double debuff on Lapras' defense. And this isn't even a Skull Bash. This is a Sparkling Oreo, which we should survive, and I'm going to commit to the Skull, looking to move Lapras from the field of play. Double debuffed, resisted Scald should pick up the knockout, and it does exactly that. The opponent then sends out Venusaur, ABA Grass with a Psywave user. So in the last battle, I got absolutely destroyed by Cacturn, and if this opponent saw one Mawile, they'd get destroyed just as quickly. I'm going to shield up the Frenzy Plant. To have any chance of winning this game, I'm going to need to make a catch. We farm up, try to make the catch. The opponent not falling for any of my shenanigans. They overfarm. They're going to fire off one Frenzy Plant, removing Ferrothorn from the field of play. And one Frenzy Plant, removing Lapras from the field of play. A very unbalanced team, but they got the job done, and we take back-to-back losses. GG's that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see the Quagman in the lead. I think it's only a matter of time before Mud Boys start overrunning this meta. The opponent save switch into Gliscopod. I'm going to bank a Power Whip for the road and then send out Tentacruel, essentially just bidding it off, as it's going to be dreadful into the Quagman. So much like we saw in the Amoonguss battle, where Acid Spray hits for neutral and Scald's resisted, Scald still does objectively more, so we fire off the Scald. The opponent invests the Protect Shield, looking to realign. That's fine for me. We're just going to send out Ferrothorn. I'm going to go for the one shield, full Bullet Seed farm down. This thing is so bloody spammy. They're going to reach back-to-back X's. We're going to tank the first, shield the second, and leave at 100 energy. Like this, even if the opponent sends out Mawile, we've seen how much a Flash Cannon does. They can't send out Quags. They're going to be forced to reveal their third. The opponent sends out Galarian Weezing, and they have two choices. Give me that shield or get one shot. Get that Galarian Weezing off my screen. Back out comes the Quagman. I could have spammed the Power Whip on alignment, forcing the final Protect Shield. We commit to good timing. We're going to send out Lapras. One Stone Edge won't be lethal. So we're going to tank the first move, shield the second, reach back-to-back Sparkling Oreos. Whatever I do, essentially, it's GG. The opponent go for the Mud Bomb bait, but that bait will not save Quagsire's fate. This first Sparkling Oreo forces the opponent's final Protect Shield. Lapras going to reach Sparkling Oreo number 2, and that is going to be all she wrote. GG's. The team returns to winning ways, heading into the next battle. We see another Cacturn in the lead. So last time I got absolutely clapped by this thing. So we're going to make an adjustment. If I commit to good timing, the opponent will outpace. I'm going to spam this move on alignment intentionally, knowing that Cacturn users shield everything. We're able to obtain ourselves an early shield advantage, and at least like this, I can get the correct alignment in the back. Tentacruel, of course, hits the super effective with the Poison Jabs, and Lapras will be hitting the double resisted with the Psywaves. I'm going to go for the one shield, full Poison Jab farm down, and thankfully Cacturn is removed from the field of play. The opponent then send out Carbink. Oh man, this is going to be some kind of nonsense fast move pressure team. We're able to land the skull, which is huge for me. The opponent then ends up playing to the CMP tie. They do not win, and we're going to force a double debuff on their defense. Big Squidward has put in so much work. We're going to let it go down and say thank you very much, Squidward, for your contribution, and hope Lapras can clean up. The opponent sends out Azuma, and I'm so grateful I'm not running Legacy Ice Beam. Power Gem, of course, is going to be the hardest hitting move left in the game. I can't quite believe I'm going to say Carbink has the hardest hitting move left in the game, as that thing is so bulky and hits like a wet noodle. However, as the opponents reset their debuff, they are potentially going to reach it. The opponent actually shielded up the Skull Bash to my surprise, which means I'm forced to shield up this next player off. And we need to be mindful. The opponent is going to look to catch a Skull Bash onto Carbink. There's the catch attempt. We see it coming in. Hold our energy. Sparkling Aura will remove Carbink from the field of play. Lapras running out of HP. Is Skull Bash enough to knock out from this range? Lapras fires off the bash. Skull Bash isn't quite lethal, but we're able to psywave farm down afterwards. And we return to winning ways against an absolute degenerate team. Let's go. GG's. So as much as I preach about fast move timing, sometimes you do want to throw at suboptimal timing, like I did in the lead of that matchup, but you just need to have some method in your madness. In the next battle, we see the Ferrothorn Mirror, the Shadow versus the Shiny. Flash Canon is the correct move to throw in this matchup, as it hits for single resisted, whereas the Power Whip would be double resisted. My opponent's actually running Thunder. It cost me 6 bloody TMs to get Flash Canon on this thing, which I'm super salty about, but I think it is the correct move to throw. I'm not really sure what you're going to Thunder in this meta. I'm going to tank this next Thunder and send out Lapras and try and Psywave farm down before the Power Whip's reached. Unfortunately, unable to do so, but I'm happy to shield once, take my energy lead and see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent sends out Squidward. We've seen this matchup play out from the other side. My Lapras has Skull Bash. Skull Bash sneaks through the Protect Shield, rocking them deep into the red health range. No one move now will knock us out. The opponent gonna fire off the Skull. Lapras withstands the damage, gets that Psywave farm down, and the opponent concedes the match. GG's that opponent. Heading into the next battle, we see Levani in the lead. Somewhat of an issue for this team. Ferrothorn doesn't do fantastically here. Lapras also doesn't do great. My opponent continue to stay in. They are farming up to like 100 energy. We fire off the Flash Cannon, forcing the first Protect Shield of the game. The opponent's thrown 15 Shadow Claws, so unless I missed an update where you can hold over 100 energy, they would have had 120, so they're well capped over the maximum of 100. I just sacrificed my lead, again looking to align my Poison Jabber with this grass type. Leaf Blade only hits for neutral, but Levani hits like a truck. Ouch, that hurt. The opponent then send out Glisserpod. I'm going to fire off the Acid Spray. Unfortunately, losing CMP. This move is resisted, but of course, I need Tentacruel around for that Levani at a later point. I'm going to fire off this Acid Spray, pivot into Lapras, and try and Psywave farm down before the second Exit is reached. It's going to be close, but the opponent has got a double debuff defense in Lapras, I believe. Lapras, get there, buddy. Lapras looks for the Psywave farm down, able to get it. The opponent reluctant to send Levani back into the arena, opt to send out Quillfish. We full send the Skull Bash. Skull Bash rocks the opponent deep into the red. The opponent then pivots back into Levani. We're going to fire off the Sparkling Aura, which probably should force the final Protect Shield and enable my Switch Timers to pop up. Switch Timers up, Tentacruel re-enters the arena, gets the Poison Jab farm down. We're one off the Acid Spray. Acid Spray is resisted, not going to do much, but the opponent has no HP and it gets the job done. GG's to that opponent. Heading into the next battle, the Lapras lead returns. This lead has been so common today. I only played 4 sets and it seems to be like a 25% of leads. The opponent safe switches into Glisserpod. Rather than bank energy, I'm just going to send out Tentacruel, looking to make it as hard as possible for the opponent to realign. We tank the Aqua Jet, fire off the Scold. Scold does go shielded, but gets a huge attack drop. Despite me being in the red, I'm thinking I should survive this move. And if I do, we've got the Acid Spray banked. Big Tentacruel absolutely putting in work today. Such an underrated pick in this meta. Getting off the Acid Spray was huge for me, as it means the opponent's only going to reach one charge move. That Bullet Seed will be removing them from the field of play. The opponent sends out Galarian Weezing. We pivot into Lapras and enter the mirror. Again, we're not messing around. We're just going straight for the Skull Bash. Skull Bash should do massive damage or force the final Protect Shield. As we force that shield, I know Ferrothorn with a 2-0 shield advantage is just going to clean up. The opponent fire off their own Skull Bash. I'm going to commit to my next Skull Bash, look to force the energy, and I do exactly that. Despite having a 2-0 shield advantage, I guess this game still has a win con if the opponent's able to catch on that Galarian Weezing, which I am being mindful of. The opponent tried to make the catch unsuccessfully. Galarian Weezing straight in and straight out. Flash Canon picks up that one hit KO. The opponent is going to fire the charge move. Not entirely sure why. We've got 2 shields. We're going to shield at the Sparkling Aura, hit the Power Whip, and that is going to be all she wrote with Ferrothorn claiming back-to-back victims. GG's and thanks for playing. Heading into the next battle, yet another Lapras. Despite me winning a lot of leads, I'm super bored of this cup. Hence they didn't even bother to play my 5th set today. I think to keep people interested in Go Battle League, if you're going to have a cup on for 2 weeks like this one is, honestly, you really need to do a bans list for week number 2. Ban like the 10 most common Pokemon, because this meta is going to be horrendous by the 2nd week. People are going to be so fed up and essentially just stop playing. This is probably Henry's team again. The opponent fires off a Sparkling Aura. We're going to full send the Skull Bash. Skull Bash, Shadow and Shadow Crime, force to Protect Shield. I'm just going to let the opponent psywave farm down as you want to keep the correct alignment. Even an Ice Beam from a Shadow Lapras won't one-shot. It will do a lot, but it's not lethal. The opponent fire off the Ice Beam, then pivot into Galarian Weezing, and Big Squidward hits the field of play. I don't see many people running Tentacruel, but I think today's showcase has shown it really is a good pick in this meta. It's advantageous into so many things that people are running. Galarian Weezing is just awful here. These sludges do a solid chunk, but Tentacruel is never ever getting Fairy Wind farm down. I'm going to full send the Scald. Scald forces the opponent's final Protect Shield. I could shield, I could let it go. It's irrelevant really at this point. Ferrothorn with a shield, going to fire off the Power Whip. The opponent can catch if they like. No catch attempt is made. Power Whip is resisted, but removes Galarian Weezing from the field of play. The opponent has dumped their energy. They're going to try and Psywave farm down Ferrothorn. Hold strong, reaches the next Power Whip, and we take that game. Heading into the next battle, I'm really hoping the lead is not Lapras. Jellicent will take it. The opponent actually opts to stay in, which is very, very nice for me. We're going to fire 5 Bullet Seeds and the Power Whip on CMP to that Shadow Ball. Power Whip goes unshielded. To be honest, as the opponent stayed in, they're likely weak somewhere else, so I may as well shield this move as it does like 75%. We're able to get that full Bullet Seed farm down, and I'm potentially going to look to pivot out. The opponent sends out Galarian Weezing. I'm going to bank a load of energy and send out Lapras. Lapras is actually my soft counter here, which is kind of funny. The opponent full send an Overheat, doing a massive chunk, and then send out Mantine. The opponent's going to look to remove Lapras from the field of play before we reach an Ice Beam or potentially Skull Bash. The opponent does exactly that. Aerial Ace, despite being a garbage move, does pick up the knockout. Back out comes Ferrothorn. So of course, using Bullet Seed, a 3-turn move into a 2-turn move. We throw 1 Bullet Seed and the Power Whip. I look to throw 3 and the next one, but the opponent is able to outpace. The opponent fire off the Aerial Ace. Again, 1 and the charge move. Is the opponent willing to 2-shield Mantine? Power Whip goes unshielded. Rather than concede a farm down, we send out Big Squidward. The opponent is going to reach an Aerial Ace, which probably is the hardest move left in the game, but I'm not shielding Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace goes unshielded. The opponent sends back out Galarian Weezing, and I'm going straight Skull. I think here the opponent is likely going to look to call the bait, as that would get him back in the game, but there are no baits on this channel. We full send the Scald. Scald goes unshielded. The opponent does look to play to their win con, and we take that game. Heading into the final battle of today's video, we are playing a friend of mine and one of my Gym Breakers teammates. So shout out Max and shout out Team Island too. This battle had me thinking. I don't battle that often. I battled yesterday and today, and that's the first time since March. And every day I battle now, I seem to play people on my friends list, people on my Discord, or like Gym Breakers or Battle Frontier teammates. That to me suggests that literally hardly anyone is playing this game, which is kind of sad to see, as PvP is not in a great place, if I have to say so. It's kind of sad, but I think that's the honest truth. I hope that Scopely, now they're in charge of the company, do something to pick up some interest, because if not, I don't know how much longer Go Battle League is really going to be a thing. I've played this game since pre-season, and I can honestly say back then I could probably count on one hand the amount of people I knew that I battled. However, nowadays, despite my elo being pretty modest, I'm in like the 25-2600 range, which isn't like elite by any chance. We've got numerous legends now. I'm playing like almost every set someone I recognise, which just shows just how limited the player pool is. So of course, rather than just complaining, we need solutions. How do I think we can increase interest in this game? Well, I think Pokemon like Feraligatr, Skeledirge, even Gliscopod, these Pokemon that everyone finds super annoying, I think they're great for the game. You can literally go out, play a com day, or even catch a Pokemon in the wild, and it's got play in all 3 leagues. I think we need more accessible Pokemon, which would help new players get into the game. You can see here Max is going to emerge victorious. GG's buddy, and I look forward to our next battle. So that is just about going to wrap things up for today's shoutcast. If you're enjoying the content, smash that like button. If you're new, consider subscribing. If you like your battles featured on my channel, the link to our battle submission form is down below. And as always, a huge thanks to everyone for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.